the great hall of Silverpine had never held so many wolves. Sarah pressed herself deeper into the shadows, her heart slamming against her ribs as she watched the ceremony unfold below. Thousands of candles blazed, casting light across the faces of pack leaders and nobles who had traveled from every corner of the realm to witness this moment. The choosing. She should not have come. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, to return to the servants' quarters where she had hidden for 3 days, waiting for Kale to send word. But he had sent nothing. Only silence. The Alpha King stood on the raised platform, his broad shoulders rigid beneath ceremonial silver and black. Even from this distance, Sarah could see the sharp cut of his jaw, the powerful stance that made lesser wolves bow their heads in submission. For 6 months, she had known another side of him, the man who whispered her name like a prayer in the darkness of the forest, the man whose hands trembled when he touched her face, the man who had given her the secret claiming bite on her hip, swearing she was his fated mate. When the council's demands are satisfied, he had promised, his breath warm against her skin, I will announce you to the world. You will be my queen, Sarah. Nothing will change that. She had believed him. Her hand moved instinctively to her lower belly, where a different secret grew. The candidates will now approach, the High Elder announced. Sarah's nails bit into her palms as 5 women in flowing white gowns ascended the steps. Daughters of the most powerful bloodlines. And at their center, with hair like spun moonlight, walked Morgana of House Nightshade. The crowd murmured with approval. The Nightshades controlled the northern territories, commanded thousands of warriors, and had been positioning their daughter for this moment for years. Sarah watched Kale's face for any sign of the man she knew, any flicker of warmth, of recognition, of the love he had sworn was eternal. His expression was carved from stone. Kale, Alpha King of Silverpine, the High Elder intoned. The realm awaits your choice. The silence stretched like a blade. Sarah stopped breathing. Her mark burned beneath her dress. Surely he could feel it too. Surely he would turn, would find her in the crowd, would declare that his choice had already been made. Kale stepped forward. His movement was strange, mechanical. His eyes seemed flat, distant, empty. I choose, his voice rang out hollow, Morgana of House Nightshade. The hall erupted in celebration, and Sarah felt something inside her shatter. The mark on her hip flared with sudden searing pain. She gasped, doubling over in the shadows. Through tear-blurred vision, she watched Kale take Morgana's hand, watched him raise it to his lips. He did not look for her. He did not hesitate. He did not seem to remember she existed. A sob tore from Sarah's throat, lost in the celebration. She stumbled backward, desperate to escape before the grief crushed her completely. She reached her tiny chamber and began to pack with shaking hands. A few dresses, her grandmother's pendant, the herbs she had gathered for the morning sickness that plagued her. Sarah pressed a kiss to her fingertips, then touched them to the frosted glass. Goodbye, my love, she whispered to the darkness. May you find the happiness you chose over me. Then she pulled her cloak tight and vanished through the servants' gate, swallowed by the winter night. She did not see the figure watching from the tower above. She did not see the amber eyes that flickered with sudden desperate awareness. And she did not hear the howl of anguish that split the sky moments later, so raw and broken that wolves across the kingdom lifted their heads in shared grief. By the time Kale reached her empty chamber, Sarah was already gone. 3 months later, the village of Ashford had almost forgotten it had a newcomer. Sarah had arrived in the dead of winter, a young widow, seeking refuge from grief. The village elders had taken pity on her swollen belly, offering her the abandoned cottage at the edge of the forest in exchange for her healing skills. Now spring was breaking through the last frost, and Sarah had become simply the healer woman who lived by the woods. She delivered babies, set broken bones, brewed teas for coughs. And every night she lay awake with her hands on her growing belly, feeling the child kick. Sometimes the movements came from opposite sides at once, as if two tiny bodies were pushing in different directions. The village midwife had suggested she might be carrying twins. Sarah tried not to think about what that might mean. The mark on her hip had never stopped burning. Among wolfkind, rejection was supposed to sever the bond completely. The mark should have disappeared within weeks. Instead, it pulsed with heat that kept her awake, and sometimes late at night she could swear she felt something through it. A presence. A searching. A desperate need. But that was impossible. Kale had chosen another. Mistress Vale, the voice at her door belonged to young Lyra, the blacksmith's daughter, using the false name Sarah had given. Traders have come from the capital. They bring news. Sarah's heart seized. What news? The Alpha King, Lyra breathed. They say he has gone mad. The world tilted beneath Sarah's feet. Mad? Lyra nodded. The traders say he has torn apart half the kingdom searching for someone. A woman. No one knows who she is, only that the king will destroy anything that stands between him and finding her. Sarah's hand moved to her belly. The baby kicked sharply. They say he has offered 10,000 gold pieces for any information leading to her discovery. After Lyra left, Sarah sank into her chair with shaking legs. He was searching for her. Why would Kale search for a woman he had publicly rejected? Unless something had been wrong that night. Movement at the tree line caught her. Attention! Sarah's breath stopped. A shape stood between the ancient oaks. Large, four-legged silver-gray fur. A wolf. As she watched, frozen, another emerged. Then another. 5 massive wolves, their amber eyes fixed on her cottage. They had found her. The mark on Sarah's hip exploded with heat. She gasped as pain radiated through her body, and beneath the pain, she felt something else. A presence, massive and desperate, pushing against the edges of her consciousness. Her babies kicked violently. He was close. Not just his wolves. Him. The front door shuddered beneath a heavy knock. Sarah's heart stopped. Mistress Vale, a male voice, unfamiliar. Please open the door. We mean you no harm. Sarah grabbed the iron poker from beside her hearth and moved toward the door. When she opened it, 3 men stood on her threshold. 2 were clearly warriors. But it was the 3rd man who drew her attention. Older, his dark hair shot through with silver, his amber eyes holding somethings that looked almost like relief. My lady, he said. I am Brennan, first beta to the Alpha King. We have been searching for you for a very long time. I think you have made a mistake, Sarah said, her voice steady. My name is Vale. I am a simple healer. Brennan's expression shifted to sympathy. You are Sarah, formerly a servant in the royal castle. You bear the king's claiming mark and his child in your womb. The poker trembled in Sarah's grip. How do you know about the mark? Because the king has described it in detail to every wolf in the realm. Because he has not slept in 3 months. Because he is tearing apart everything he built to find the mate who vanished without a trace. Brennan paused. May we come in? Sarah stepped aside, her legs shaking. He did not choose her, Brennan said quietly. Morgana, I mean. He did not choose her willingly. Sarah's knees nearly buckled. What? The night of the choosing, someone slipped a compound into the king's wine, something that suppressed his wolf, severed his connection to his instincts and his bond. That's impossible, Sarah whispered. We thought so too, until the effects wore off 3 days later, and the king woke screaming your name. Brennan's voice hardened. He remembered nothing of the ceremony. The first thing he did was run to find you. Sarah sank into the nearest chair, her mind reeling. Drugged. He had been drugged. "Who did this?" she demanded. "We believe House Nightshade, though we cannot yet prove it. Morgana's family wanted their bloodline on the throne. With you gone, and the king bound to their daughter by witnessed oath, they would have everything." Brennan knelt before her chair. "My lady, the king is not well. The severed bond, the missing mate. His wolf has been fighting for dominance. If he does not find you soon, we fear he may go feral permanently. I cannot go back," she heard herself say. "Morgana, the Nightshades, they will kill me. They will kill my child. Which is why I have not told the king exactly where you are." Brennan withdrew a folded letter. "This arrived at the castle 3 weeks ago." Sarah took the paper with numb fingers. The message inside was brief. "The false mate has been located. The problem will be eliminated before the next full moon. Long live Queen Morgana." Sarah's blood turned to ice. "Assassins." Brennan nodded grimly. "We intercepted this by chance. We do not know how many have been sent, or how close they are. My lady, Kale will find you with or without my help. The bond is guiding him. Every day he gets closer." As if to emphasize his words, Sarah's mark flared with heat again. "He feels that too," the beta said quietly. "Every time your mark burns, he feels an answering fire." Before Brennan could say more, a howl split the evening air. Long, filled with warning. The beta was on his feet instantly. "They have found us." Through her window, Sarah could see shapes moving between the trees. Not the silver-gray wolves who had watched earlier. These were different, darker, their movements coordinated with predatory precision. And leading them, stepping from the shadows with a crossbow raised, was a figure in black whose face was hidden behind a wolf skull mask. The Nightshade assassins had arrived. The first arrow shattered Sarah's window. Brennan moved with supernatural speed, shoving her toward the back of the cottage as glass exploded across the floor. The 2 guards burst through the front door, already shifting, their human forms dissolving into massive wolves. "The cellar," Brennan commanded. "Now." "There is no way out from the cellar," Sarah gasped. "You only need to survive until reinforcements arrive." Another arrow punched through the wooden wall, embedding itself inches from Sarah's head. She could see the dark liquid glistening on its tip. Poison. Brennan pulled a long knife from his belt and pressed it into her hands. "The blade is silver-edged. Use it if you must." Before Sarah could respond, a howl of pain erupted from outside. Then silence. Brennan's eyes flickered amber. "Stay hidden. Whatever happens, do not come out until you hear my voice or the king's." He was already gone, his body exploding into wolf form. Sarah stood frozen, the silver knife clutched in her trembling hands. Through the shattered glass she could see wolves clashing. The flash of blades, the sickening sound of flesh meeting steel. Her mark burned with renewed intensity, and she gasped at the sensation. He was closer now, much closer. Through the window she watched in horror as Brennan's wolf form was thrown against an oak tree with bone-cracking force. 3 dark wolves circled him. He was losing. Sarah's gaze dropped to the cellar door. She could hide as instructed, could wait in the darkness, and pray. But Brennan would be dead by then. No, she had spent 3 months running, 3 months hiding. Not anymore. Sarah dropped the silver knife and pressed her palms together. The power she had kept suppressed since childhood stirred in her chest. Healing magic in someone of common blood would mark her as unnatural, but she was already marked for death. Golden light bloomed between her hands, warm and pure and ancient. Sarah stepped through the shattered window into the chaos of battle. Every wolf in the clearing turned to stare at the pregnant woman who glowed like a fallen star. The assassin wolves hesitated. Sarah walked toward Brennan's fallen form, her bare feet leaving prints of light in the blood-stained snow. "You will not have him," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that were not entirely human. She knelt beside Brennan and pressed her glowing hands to his wounds. The beta gasped as healing energy poured into his broken body, knitting bone and closing gashes. One of the assassin wolves lunged toward her. The golden light around her flared like a sunrise. The wolf was thrown backward with a yelp, its dark fur fled into the forest, followed by two others. But the masked figure stepped into the clearing, crossbow raised. Unlike the wolves, this assassin was fully human, unaffected by the magic. "Impressive," a female voice said. "The Nightshades will be very interested to learn that the king's whore is a witch." Sarah's power flickered. The healing had cost her more than she realized. The assassin's finger tightened on the trigger. Then the forest exploded. Trees splintered like kindling as something massive crashed through the undergrowth. The ground shook. The remaining assassin wolves scattered in pure terror. A wolf the size of a warhorse burst from the tree line, its fur black as midnight, its eyes blazing with golden fire. It moved with impossible speed, crossing the clearing in a single bound. Its jaws closed around the assassin's crossbow arm with a sickening crunch. The woman's scream was cut short as the massive wolf shook her, then flung her broken body into the darkness. It turned, searching for more threats, finding none. Then those burning golden eyes fixed on Sarah. The wolf approached slowly, each step deliberate. Blood dripped from its muzzle. Its massive body blocked out the moonlight. And yet, when it finally stood before her, it lowered its great head and pressed its nose gently to her belly. The babies kicked, both at once, responding to their father's presence. The wolf made a sound that was almost a whimper. "Kale," Sarah whispered. The shift happened in the space between heartbeats. One moment a wolf stood before her. The next, a man knelt in the snow, his hands hovering over her stomach as if afraid to touch. He looked up and Sarah saw that the Alpha King was weeping. "You are alive," Kyle breathed, his voice raw, broken. "You are alive, and you are." His eyes dropped to her swollen belly. "May I?" The question shattered something in Sarah's chest. She took his hand and pressed it to her stomach. The babies kicked immediately. Kale's eyes widened. "A child," he whispered. "Our child. Sarah, why did you not tell me?" The question broke the spell. Sarah stepped backward, pulling away from his touch. "Tell you?" Her voice came out sharper than intended. "When would I have done that, Kale? Before or after you chose Morgana in front of the entire kingdom?" Kale flinched. "I did not choose her. I would never." "I saw you," the words tore from her throat. "I was there. I watched you take her hand. I watched you stand before our people and declare that she would be your queen, while I hid in the shadows, like some shameful secret. Sarah, please." Kale rose to his feet. "I was drugged. Brennan told you. The Nightshades poisoned me. I remember nothing of that night except waking 3 days later and finding you gone. How convenient." "Convenient?" Kale's voice hardened. "You think any part of this has been convenient? I have spent 3 months hunting for you. 3 months fighting my wolf for control. 3 months watching my kingdom crumble while I tore apart every village, every forest, searching for the mate who vanished without a word. Because you rejected me. Because I was violated." The roar shook the clearing. The word hung between them. Terrible and true. "Do you think I chose this?" His voice cracked. "Do you think I wanted to wake up bound to a woman I despise while the woman I love was gone? While our bond was screaming in my chest, and I had no idea where you were or if you were even alive?" Sarah's anger faltered. The bond. She had felt it too. Every day of her exile. The burning mark that should have faded, but never did. "I thought you had thrown me away," she whispered. I thought everything you said was a lie." Kale closed the distance between them in 2 strides. His hands cupped her face, tilting it up. "You are worthy of everything," he said fiercely. "You are my mate, my true mate. Do you think I would give that up for politics? For power? For anything in this world?" A sob escaped Sarah's throat. She had held the grief inside for so long. "I waited for you," she choked out. "That night, I waited in my chamber. I was going to tell you about the baby." His expression shattered. "Sarah. And when you did not come, I went to find you. Instead, I found you choosing her." She pounded her fist against his chest, but there was no strength behind it. "Do you know what that felt like?" Kale caught her wrist and pressed her palm flat against his heart. "Yes," he said quietly. "I know exactly what it felt like because I have spent every moment since that night living with the knowledge that I failed you." His heartbeat thundered beneath her hand. "I have not touched Morgana. I have not even been in the same room as her since I regained my senses. The Council is threatening rebellion. They think I have gone mad." He laughed bitterly. "And perhaps I have. But I would burn this kingdom to ashes before I let anyone but you sit beside me on that throne." The mark on her hip flared with heat, and she felt his answering pulse through the bond. "The Nightshades sent assassins," she heard herself say. "They want me dead." Kale's eyes hardened to molten gold. "Then the Nightshades will learn what happens to those who threaten my mate." A rustle from the tree line interrupted them. Brennan stepped forward, his body still bearing the marks of battle despite Sarah's healing. "My king," the beta said carefully. "The assassin you dealt with was Elena Nightshade, Morgana's younger sister." "Then there is no more pretense," Kale said grimly. "The Nightshades have openly attempted to murder the true queen of Silverpine. This is war." His hand moved to her belly again. "They tried to take everything from me. My mate, my heir, my very will. I will not allow them to threaten our family ever again." A howl rose from the forest, long and mournful. More followed, dozens of voices joining in chorus. "The king's wolves have arrived," Brennan said. "All of them." Sarah looked past Kyle to see shapes emerging from the darkness. Wolves of every size and color filling the clearing, their eyes gleaming with fierce loyalty. "We go to Silverpine tonight," Kale announced. "Sarah comes with us. The Nightshades answer for their crimes before the full moon rises." Sarah wanted to protest, but when Kyle looked at her, his golden eyes soft with tenderness, she found she could not refuse him anything. "Together?" she asked quietly. Kale pressed his forehead to hers. "Always, my heart. From this moment until my last breath. Together." The journey to Silverpine should have taken 3 days. Kale's wolves made it in 1. Sarah rode in front of the Alpha King on his massive black horse, his arm wrapped securely around her waist. The baby seemed to approve, settling into peaceful stillness. As they rode through the night, Kale told her everything. About waking from the drugged haze to find Morgana in his chambers. About the horror that flooded through him when he realized what had been done. About throwing Morgana from his rooms and ordering her confined. He told her about the search that had consumed every waking moment. The sleepless nights spent poring over maps and reports. The way his control had frayed until his own advisors feared to be in the same room with him. "My wolf knew you were alive," he murmured against her hair. "The bond never fully broke. Every time I tried to accept that you might be gone forever, I would feel a pulse of warmth, and I knew you were out there somewhere." Sarah's hand moved to cover his where it rested on her belly. "I felt it too," she admitted. "The burn that never faded. The dreams." Kale stiffened. "You dreamed of me?" "Every night. You came to my chamber. You told me you loved me, that you would find me." "Those were not dreams." Kale's voice was hoarse. "My wolf, when I slept, he would reach for you through the bond. I thought I was only imagining it. Sarah turned in the saddle to look at him. In the moonlight, she could see the shadows under his eyes, the gauntness of his cheeks, the evidence of months of suffering. "We have both been through so much," she whispered. "Apart when we should have been together." Kale's hand came up to cup her face. "Never again," he vowed. "Whatever comes next, we face it as one." He leaned down and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle at first, tender and questioning. But when Sarah's hand curled around the back of his neck, something ignited between them. The bond roared to life. Sarah gasped as sensation flooded through her. His emotions crashed into hers with overwhelming force. Love, desperate and all-consuming. Desire barely held in check. And beneath it all, a fierce protectiveness that wrapped around her like armor. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kale's eyes were blazing gold. "Soon," he promised. "When you are safe, when our enemies are destroyed, I will complete the bond properly, and you will never doubt my devotion again." They reached the outskirts of Silverpine as dawn painted the sky. But something was wrong. Smoke rose from several quarters of the city, and on the great banner that flew above the castle gates, the royal crest had been replaced by the silver serpent of House Nightshade. "No," Brennan breathed. "They would not dare." Kale's arm tightened around Sarah. "They have taken the castle." "How is that possible?" Sarah demanded. "You have been gone barely a day." "The Nightshades have been planning this for months, perhaps years. They did not just want me to marry Morgana. They wanted to replace me entirely." A rider emerged from the city gates, galloping toward them. One of Kale's scouts, his face ashen. "My king," he gasped. "The Nightshades struck at midnight. They had allies within the guard. Lord Nightshade has declared himself regent, claiming you have gone mad. Lady Morgana has been named queen." A snarl tore from Kale's throat. "There is more," the scout continued. "They have taken hostages. The servants who remained loyal to you. The guards who refused to bend the knee. They are to be executed at noon as traitors. All 37 of them." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. "Including Marta?" The old nurse who had helped her during her time at court. The scout nodded. "The one who served in the royal chambers. Marta, who had brought her extra blankets when she was cold, who had covered for her absences when she slipped away to meet Kale in secret." "We have to save them," Sarah said fiercely. Kale looked down at her. "Sarah, you cannot enter that city. If the Nightshades capture you, if we do nothing, 37 innocent people die. I will not have their blood on my hands. I will not let Marta die because she was kind to me." For a long moment, the Alpha King was silent. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. Something fierce, something proud. "My queen," he murmured. "Even now, you think of others before yourself." He turned to address the army of wolves assembled behind them. "The Nightshades believe they have won. They believe their treachery has succeeded." His eyes blazed with golden fire. "They are wrong!" A howl rose from the assembled wolves, hundreds of voices joining in chorus. "Today we take back what is ours. Today we show the traitors what happens to those who threaten our king, our true queen, and the heirs she carries." The army surged forward, a tide of fur and fang and righteous rage, and at its head, with his mate held close against his heart, the Alpha King rode to reclaim his throne. The battle for Silverpine was brutal and brief. The Nightshades had expected resistance. They had not expected an army of wolves driven by 3 months of rage and the primal need to protect their king's mate and unborn heirs. Sarah watched from a protected position on the hillside as Kale led the charge. Even from this distance, she, could feel his fury through the bond. His wolf form was terrible to behold, a shadow of death that tore through the Nightshade defenders. Within an hour the outer walls had fallen. Within 2, the castle gates lay in splinters. But as the sun climbed toward noon, a messenger came running. "My lady, Lord Nightshade has barricaded himself in the great hall with the hostages. He says if the king does not surrender, he will execute them all, starting with the old nurse." Sarah was moving before she consciously decided to, ignoring the protests of the guards Kale had left to protect her. Her body ached, but none of that mattered. She found him at the doors of the great hall, held back by Brennan and 3 other wolves. "You cannot go in there," Brennan was saying. "It is exactly what Nightshade wants." "If I do nothing, innocent people die," Kale replied. Sarah pushed through the guards. "Kale!" He spun at the sound of her voice. "Sarah, what are you doing here? I told you to. Stay." "I know what you told me," she stopped before him. "And I am telling you that I will not hide while others die in my place. This is not your fight. It became my fight the moment the Nightshades decided I was an obstacle." Sarah placed her hand on his chest. "And it became my fight the moment I fell in love with you." Kale's breath caught. In all their months together, neither of them had ever spoken those words aloud. "Sarah," he whispered. "I love you," she repeated, stronger now. "I loved you when I thought you had betrayed me. I loved you through 3 months of exile and heartbreak. And I will not let that love make me a coward now." She turned toward the great hall doors. "Lord Nightshade, I am Sarah, the woman your family has tried so hard to destroy. I am coming in. Alone." "Sarah, no." Kyle grabbed her arm. She looked back at him. "Trust me. Please." Something passed between them through the bond. Not words, but understanding. Faith. Kale released her arm. Sarah pushed open the doors and stepped into the great hall. 37 hostages knelt in a line, their hands bound, their faces pale with terror. Armed Nightshade soldiers stood behind them with blades drawn, and on the throne sat Lord Aldrich Nightshade. Beside him stood Morgana. "So this is the creature that has caused so much trouble," Morgana said, her lip curling. "A servant girl with a swollen belly. How pathetic." Sarah ignored her, her gaze finding Marta among the hostages. "Run, child," Marta whispered. "I am done running." Sarah turned to face Lord Nightshade. "You want the king to surrender. I am offering you something better." Nightshade's eyebrow rose. "And what might that be?" "Me." Sarah placed her hand on her belly. "The king's mate and his unborn heirs. Take me as your hostage instead. Release the others." "No!" The roar came from beyond the doors. Kale's anguish tore through the bond like shattered glass. But Nightshade was smiling. "An interesting proposition. Very well, I accept." "Father, wait," Morgana interjected. "We should simply kill her now." "Patience, daughter. A dead hostage has no value. A living one, especially one carrying the royal heirs." Nightshade's smile widened. "Guards, release the prisoners. Secure the girl." The hostages were cut free, stumbling toward the doors. As rough hands grabbed Sarah's arms, she felt strangely calm. The bond with Kale pulsed with his panic, his rage. But beneath all of that, she could feel something else. The babies stirring within her, and with them a power she had never felt before. The children were not just Kale's heirs. They were the product of a true mate bond. Something that had not occurred in the royal bloodline for 5 generations. And those children, even unborn, carried magic of their own. Golden light began to emanate from Sarah's belly. Nightshade's eyes widened. "What is this?" The light spread, flowing through her limbs. Pain exploded through her body as bones began to shift. "No!" she gasped, falling to her knees. "Not now! Please, not now!" But the transformation would not be denied. 3 months of suppressed change, held back by her own fear, demanded release. The baby's awakening power had triggered what she had been fighting since the night Kyle bit her. She was becoming a wolf. The great hall doors exploded inward. Kale burst through in full wolf form, his massive black body hurtling toward her. His howl shook the rafters. Nightshade soldiers rushed to intercept him. Morgana screamed orders. Chaos erupted, and Sarah, caught in the agony of transformation, could only pray that she survived. The pain was like nothing Sarah had ever experienced. Every bone shattered and reformed. Her skin rippled as fur pushed through. She screamed, but the sound that emerged was no longer human. Through the haze of agony, she was aware of Kale fighting his way toward her. But he was not fast enough. Lord Nightshade had drawn a blade. Wolf's bane-coated steel. "If I cannot have the throne," Nightshade snarled, raising the blade over Sarah's convulsing body, "then neither will he." The sword descended and stopped. Sarah's hand, no longer fully human, had caught the blade. Silver white fur covered her fingers. Claws that had not existed moments before dug into the poisoned steel. The wolf's bane burned against her palm, but she held firm. "No," she growled, and her voice carried harmonics that resonated with ancient power. The transformation completed in a surge of golden light. Where a pregnant woman had knelt, a wolf now stood. Her fur was the color of moonlight on snow, her eyes blazing with amber fire. She was angry. Sarah lunged. Her jaws closed around Nightshade's sword arm. The Lord screamed as bones crunched. She shook him once, twice, then flung him aside. Across the hall, Morgana shrieked, "Kill her! Kill them both!" But the remaining Nightshade soldiers were backing away. One by one, they dropped their weapons and fled. Kale reached her side, his black fur pressing against her white. "You shifted," his voice echoed in her mind. "Sarah, you shifted." "I had motivation," she replied, surprised by how natural the mental communication felt. The wolf made a sound that might have been a laugh. "My brave, impossible mate." Morgana had retrieved her father's fallen sword and was advancing with murder in her eyes. "You ruined everything," she hissed. "You were supposed to be nobody." Sarah shifted back to human, her body flowing through the change with surprising ease. She stood before her enemy, one hand resting on her belly where the babies still grew, miraculously unharmed. "I did not steal anything," Sarah said quietly. "The bond between Kale and me was forged by fate, not ambition. Your family tried to break it with poison and lies. All you accomplished was proving that true mates cannot be separated." Morgana screamed and charged. She never reached her target. Kyle's jaws closed around her wrist. He shifted back to human form, holding the struggling Morgana immobile while his wolves flooded the hall. "Morgana of House Nightshade," Kale announced, "you and your family are charged with treason, attempted murder of the true queen, and conspiracy against the crown. You will face judgment." "You cannot do this," Morgana spat. "You chose me before the entire kingdom." "I declared nothing." Kale's eyes blazed gold. "A puppet drugged into compliance is not a king making choices. The choosing is void. It always was." Guards brought cloaks to cover them both. Kyle wrapped Sarah in warm fabric with careful hands. "Are you hurt?" Sarah paused, taking inventory. Her body felt different now. Stronger, more alive. "I am well. Better than well." Kyle's hand found her belly, and his eyes widened as he felt movement from 2 distinct places. "The children," he breathed. "Children," Sarah corrected softly. "I think there may be 2 of them. The transformation actually helped. Their magic triggered the change. They saved us all." Kyle made a choked sound and pulled her into his arms. "I thought I had lost you," he whispered. "When Nightshade raised that sword, I know, Sarah pulled back to cup his face, but I am here. I am not going anywhere. Not ever again. Kale's eyes searched her face. The bond, he said hoarsely. It needs to be completed properly. If you will have me. Sarah thought of everything they had been through. The secret meetings, the devastating betrayal that had not been a betrayal at all, the months of separation, the battle and blood, and the terrifying moment when she had embraced the wolf within. I will have you, she said. I have always been yours, Kale. From the moment we met. He kissed her then, in front of the assembled wolves and the defeated Nightshades. When they broke apart, Kale tilted his head, baring his throat to her in the ancient gesture of a wolf offering himself to his mate. Claim me, he said. Make it complete. Sarah understood instinctively what to do. Her wolf rose within her, guiding her as she pressed her lips to the spot where his neck met his shoulder. Her teeth sank into his flesh. The bond exploded between them. It was not pain. It was completion. Two halves of a single soul finally becoming whole. Sarah felt Kale's essence pour into her as hers flowed into him. Every memory, every emotion, every secret corner of their hearts laid bare. She saw the night of the choosing through his eyes. Not the empty puppet she had witnessed, but the horror of waking 3 days later with no memory. She felt the desperation of his search, the way his wolf howled in anguish every night. She felt his terror when Nightshade raised that sword over her, and he saw himself through hers. Not a king who had failed her, but a man who had fought against impossible odds to find her, who had torn his kingdom apart rather than accept a false mate, who loved her with a ferocity that transcended everything. When Sarah finally released him, they were both trembling. My queen, Kale breathed, pressing his forehead to hers. My king, she answered. Around them, wolves began to howl, a celebration of victory, of justice, of a true mate bond, finally, completely, eternally sealed. In the weeks that followed, the Nightshades faced judgment. Lord Aldrich was executed for his crimes. Morgana was exiled to the frozen northern wastes, stripped of her name and her wolf, condemned to live out her days as the nothing she had once accused Sarah of being. The kingdom healed. The crops that had withered began to grow again. The wolves who had grown feral returned to their senses as the completed bond radiated peace throughout the realm. The people of Silverpine celebrated their true queen with joy that surprised Sarah. She had expected suspicion, even hostility. Instead, she found acceptance. The wolves could feel the truth of the bond. They could sense that this was what fate had always intended. And on a warm spring evening, as the sun set over Silverpine in shades of gold and rose, Sarah gave birth to twins. A boy with his father's dark hair and his mother's healing gift. A girl with silver-white fur when she shifted, and eyes that already gleamed with amber fire. Kale held his children with tears streaming down his face, his warrior's hands impossibly gentle. Thank you, he whispered to Sarah, for fighting for us, for believing even when I gave you every reason not to. Sarah reached up to touch his face, her fingers tracing the claiming mark on his throat, the mark that matched the one on her hip. Both now healed into beautiful silver scars that proclaimed their bond to all who saw them. I never stopped believing, she said softly. Even in the darkest moments, something inside me knew we were always meant to find our way back to each other. Kale leaned down to kiss her, their children nestled safely between them. Always, he agreed, in this life and every life that follows. You are my heart, Sarah, my mate, my home. Outside their window, the wolves of Silverpine lifted their voices in a howl of joy, and in the great tapestry of the kingdom's history, a new chapter was woven. The story of a servant girl who became a queen, of an alpha king who tore apart his realm to find his true love, of a bond that could not be broken by poison, or politics, or even the cruelest twists of fate. They had found each other against all odds, and they would never be parted again.